That and you're like, yes, you did. We have it on tape. So we're going to take a little break here, but we'll be back with Jim, our private investigator. You're listening to former private investigator. You're talking with Joan at the Joan Jerkovich Show, 910 KINA. I'm sorry, I knew we were going well over. You had a good point.
The ability to get out.
No, that's what's
perfect.
Hang around
mucus too much.
Yeah, well, you're kind of quiet in there, though. Seriously, I mean, I don't think you talk as much as some of those people.
I don't. It's so funny. I usually just sit there and listen to Aaron's.
Oh, gosh.
All the compilation that goes in front of that.
Did you hear about
we just get such a big kick out of it.
Did you hear about he moved into the house with a bidet?
Oh,
Did you hear that story?
No,
oh, my word. I was in there and he was talking about, of course, you know, he came up on our second show. And a lot of people loved watching him, and the video outtakes with him for the on JoanJerkovich.com were really fun too. But he said, I got this bidet in my new place I moved into. He goes, I want to come on your show, Joan, and I want to talk about how that bidet raped me. He says, I'm not meaning to diminish the seriousness of rape, but I seriously feel that thing raped me. And I'm like, Aaron, you're just a lunatic. You are a lunatic. Raped by a bidet. Oh, yeah. And, he, you know, of course, you know, it's not like Aaron to be too sensitive to being offensive to women. So, you know.
Not at all.
Yeah, yeah. Although he made that apology to me. So, yeah. Okay, well, let me restart here.
Okay.
Clear that. And we're going to go 8, right, Sari?
Yes, 8.
There it did it. Okay. This is Joan with the Joan Jerkovich Show. We're back with Jim, the former private investigator. I made that mistake a couple times, trying to drum up some new business for him, but he's not. He doesn't want that. So, but I think Jim, something that we talked about in our first segment was you work for a lot of attorneys. You might be doing criminal cases. You're reviewing records. Now, talk about licensing. I mean, you're just not a guy on the street getting to go out there and do all this.
No, matter of fact, you have to be licensed. You go through the Kansas Bureau of Investigation. They have the background part that they go through. They look at your references and your sources. They want to make sure that insurance and everything's in place. And once everything has been fulfilled and you've fulfilled your obligations financially, you know, as far as the insurance and bonding and licensing and all of that nature.
Right.
And then you kind of go from there. And then, of course, every year you renew your license.
And I assume you fit the criteria that I found on the Kansas website about becoming a licensed private investigator, that you're a good moral character.
You hope so.
Okay. And you're incompetent, you're not incapacitated, or you're not a mental case, Jim?
Gosh, I hope I'm not.
That's 2 years ago, though. I don't know. You know, you're not current, so.
Well, that is true. I do drink a lot of coffee, though.
So you might have forgotten they had some of those criteria in there. But also said you have to pass an open book examination. Okay, how hard is that? Like, do you have to pass it at a certain percentage point, or?
You know, I'm not really sure how they grade it.
Okay.
But I know that they're going to ask you questions pertinent to, are you able to make good decisions? Are you able to make decisions without putting, you know, I would think, this is just my opinion, you know, anybody in jeopardy. Yourself, other people, the people that you represent, and things of that nature.
Those are easy. You can rely on those.
You know, but I think if you do a good enough investigation, I hope that, you know, that they're going to come out with a good quality person that's going to be able to go and make, you know, good decisions and find factual types of evidence and kind of go from there. To be real honest with you, I don't know of too many other private investigators or former private investigators.
Well, I had a lead on another one here in town, but here was the deal. They're currently working, and there was some issue of, you know, I can't do my job and come on your show and talk about what I do. Because some of that, did you have some of that with the work you were assigned to do, that you had to be kind of in disguise?
Gosh,
or do you have to dress up as a woman?
Wow.
Well, I had a conversation with Michael Spicer about wearing heels this morning at Derek down there at Mocha's, and he said he's got the pictures to prove it.
I can tell you I've never dressed as a woman.
You've never done the dress?
I have, matter of fact, I've never wore a disguise.
You never did in your work? You didn't? No. That wasn't part of it?
It wasn't part of it.
Did you have to like sneak around and you know, surely if people realized you were watching them, they would maybe be more on the alert.
What an art. You know, there's an art to everything.
Oh, is there?
Sure there is. I think people by nature, and I'm just talking in generalities, not so much as a former investigator, but people by nature are creatures of habit. We go to work the same way.
Right.
We drive the same car. We go to the same places to shop. We may shop on a particular day or a particular time. And that could work for you when you're wanting to find people and look at people, what have you. The key to that would be to not be so conspicuous yourself.
Right, right.
It is not like the TV shows, as you see private investigators in that
the black
process.
car, the black
and
sedan.
The tinted black windows and the whatever,
black
and all the little
sunglasses and the
spy
earpiece,
gears.
Yeah.
And that may be
Yeah.
for some people.
Yeah.
When I did it years ago, it wasn't for me.
Right.
But you know,
You didn't wear like body cameras
No.
or had binoculars, surely. You had binoculars. You were just like old school or something.
You cannot believe.
Yeah.
I guess it's kind of like.
Because all that whole surveillance equipment thing is really big when you look into being a private investigator.
Let me
there are
ask you a
lists of
question.
things you could do.
Let me ask you a question, Joan.
Okay.
And we're going to use your astute powers of observation,
Okay.
anybody. When you go and you have coffee, which I see you quite a bit at the coffee shop.
Right.
When you go and you have coffee, you said, gosh, Jim, you're pretty quiet. And I really kind of am. I don't have a whole lot to say. But isn't it amazing, the things that you hear and see and conversations of people and the associations and what have you? Isn't that amazing? Now,
You mean when you're more like quietly observing?
absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And that's a true collection of how you gather information.
Exactly. You know, it was funny too. Did you have, you know, I can't believe you didn't have any of this really cool surveillance equipment, but surely you had the white nondescript minivan to drive around in. Because I read somewhere where you have to have a car that you don't notice and nobody pays attention to.
I can't even remember what car I had, but I will tell you, sometimes.
The PI magazine actually said that.
Wow,
It's like, you know, you have to have a minivan or whatever vehicle in your town.
Magazine.
Yeah.
And that's the truth. But
I know more than you do.
Yes, you do. You could be, Joan Jerkovich.
You know, I truly wore black thinking we could go out and do
Yes.
some kind of surveillance
We
thing.
are-
I was like
we're-
totally in the mood
Look
for
at
this today.
Look at this today.
Yeah,
Black
I
and
was
white.
almost going to bring like a black hoodie or mask or something.
Sweet.
And I don't know if you do that kind of thing.
No.
You sound like you were just out there walking your dog
Yeah.
or reading your book.
Yeah. You know, I had a couple good
That's
friends.
easier than I thought. Hey,
Had a
I could
couple
sit
of
around
great
and
friends.
get paid to read a book.
Yeah, that did that. Did some program.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, several friends that did that, and they said, "Gosh, sometimes they would ride their bike, sometimes they read a book, sometimes they walk their dog, sometimes they walk with your wife."
Yeah.
It's an amazing process of the things that you can do,
Okay.
but you have to tune in to your senses.
So let's get your senses going, and you tell us
Wow.
a spicy story.
spicy story.
Of the cheating somebody you found in bed with
Oh.
the coworker, best friend.
Gosh,
We got to get people to
You ready
listen
for
in.
this? You
Yeah,
ready for this?
yeah.
I hate to tell you this, I've never found.
Oh.
one. Never.
You won't be coming back on
I
the show.
will not
Jim.
be coming back on your show because I have
Unless you
never
spice
found
it
one.
up.
I don't have
Did you
pictures
work
of
very
it.
many of those, though,
Very
actually?
few, and I try to
Because it
stay
sounded
away
like
from
you
it.
worked a lot of more legal,
More
criminal.
more criminal
Right.
cases, more trying to find.
Right.
You know, the interesting cases that I had, and there were several homicide cases, old homicide cases that you look for. But some of the interesting cases was that I had a person defined that had a very common last name like Jones or Smith or Johnson or whatever the case may be.
Or Jerkovich in Croatia, believe it or
Jerkovich,
not.
yeah.
It's like a Smith in
But not in Salina.
U.S., yeah.
That's true.
No.
But I had an interesting case, and it started in a small town to the east of here, and it ended up
And we
in
got
a
about
major
half a minute. So.
major metropolitan city, and found the guy, talked to the guy, and was able to make a connection.
Well,
And
cool.
it was really a pretty cool thing, and it was a good thing for him because he actually got money for it. So
Well, good for
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Well, we'll end on that note where
Cool.
you had this very successful PI thing, and you're listening to Joan with the Joan Jerkovich Show, 910 KINA. Go to joanjerkovich.com for the video outtakes, and if you don't have a radio, you can always listen on salinapost.com. Just go to the live stream on KINA. We're it.
That ended it.
That always
8
goes
minutes
so
about
fast. I know.
on
Well,
the
I got
dot.
a tiny bit over. He has so much to say. Oh yeah. I saw this moral character, incompetent, incapacitated. You have to have. You can't be impaired mentally. I thought of you when I read all that.
Yeah, that's probably me. I'm purely impaired and
Well, they talked
scrupulous
about how
and-
much they earn. You know, 28,000, which probably for here is a lot, but then they can go up to 120 or 200. Those must be like the bodyguard. You know, Kevin Costner in that movie.
I
would assume he's that kind
I
of.
made pretty good money.
Did you really?
The downfall of it
Probably
was,
because you were with the court cases and the attorneys and stuff. They
well,
have a
and
budget.
attorneys aren't great at paying.
Oh, really?
And to be honest with you, unless you get retainers, sometimes
Yeah.
it's pretty tough, unless you're working on bids cases
Mhm.
with the Board of Indigent Services. But
Mhm.
but kind of a bottom line is that it may be several months before you get paid. You may
Oh,
be living on your
wow.
savings account. You better have a
Oh,
savings account in
eek.
place.
That's hard to.
And sometimes
support a
you may have to
family.
fight to get your pay
Mhm.
in there. And even if you gather all the evidence and everything for your defendant, you go to court and you testify on their behalf, what have you, doesn't mean that you're getting paid. So if you're looking for, and I probably should have said it, if you're looking for a steady
This will be on the
paycheck,
video though. Yeah.
if you're looking for a steady paycheck,
Mhm.
then maybe this is not the thing that you want to do.
Well, they say a lot of retired police officers who are already on some sort of a pension will oftentimes do that. Will oftentimes they're earning a pension, so this is kind of the extra.
Well, you could work.
Which, you know, you could work it like that, and obviously they'd be doing this because they're very interested in it.
You could work for an attorney or an attorney's
Right.
office, singular. You
Mhm.
can't work for a
Mhm.
multitude
Mhm.
as a private investigator would.
Be conflict of
Purely,
interest.
absolutely,
Right.
purely for that attorney or that attorney's office,
Mhm.
and gather evidence
Mhm.
and gather things for them.
Mhm.
And that's perfectly, I mean, as you did your research, I mean, that's perfectly within the legal
Mhm.
boundaries of the things that you can do, if that's what you enjoy doing, is
Mhm.
putting together things like that. If you work for a large law firm and that's what you did full-time, well, I mean, you know, that's, I hope you enjoy doing that.
Mhm.
But, you know, did I enjoy it? Parts of
Sounds
it?
very boring to me.
Was there a lot of things that it may take you?
It's
if
not
you're-
edited like TV shows where the PIs
Not
are
at all.
catching up with the great excitement all of a sudden.
No, you
All
know,
that dry
and you know,
downtime.
and even the
Yeah.
PIs that you see that work on cases
Yeah.
like the Casey
Yeah.
Anthony trial
Yes.
and Joan Benet and different things
Yes,
of that nature,
right.
all the other cases. Even then, yeah, you may be one in a million
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
may be able to find
Mhm.
the evidence that's gonna be able to, you know, to be there. And plus, you know, just because you find it, does
Mhm.
that mean that the police are gonna believe you? Does that mean that the county
Oh,
attorney's
wow.
gonna even
Yeah.
say that
Wanna
that's
admit it.
plausible evidence or whatever the
Mhm.
case may be?
Mhm.
Don't know.
Mhm.
You know, it's just one of those things, you do what you do.
Mhm.
You can't take anything personally. You just
Right.
cannot do it.
Right.
And you kind of.
Well, I'm gonna let you go, and thank you so much for
Okay.
coming.